my own background in terms of contemplative practice is in Buddhism. I encountered Zen and Eastern teachings in 1974 and meditated off and on, lately seriously on the last decade or two. And in that context, I've asked myself from time to time, what in the world is going on in the brain of a Buddha? Or the brain of anyone who's far along in their path, or in the moment, let's say, is in a state of flow, or self-actualization, or peak experiences, or just simply in a really, really good place. What's actually going on in the brain? And then what we can do is some reverse engineering. Because if we start having a clearer idea, even in the context of neuroscience being a baby science, truly, particularly compared to older sciences like astronomy or chemistry, is we have a more and more clarity about the neural substrates, the circuits, the processes, the connections, the tendencies, and so on, that underlie the most wholesome mental factors, the most wholesome and positive for ourselves and others states of mind. Then we can work backwards. Because as we understand more what's going on inside the bio-machine, if you will, we can start working with the levers and help it become better. So, in terms of these three fundamental needs of the brain, what happens when a person has these needs met, or in particular, they experience the needs are met? In other words, when they're not disturbed, using traditional language, by hatred, quote unquote, in terms of the avoiding system, when they're not disturbed by greed, quote unquote, in terms of the approaching system, and they're not disturbed by heartache, if you will, in terms of the attaching system. Quick sidebar, those of you who have a background in Buddhist psychology know that I'm referring to two of the three poisons, as it were, greed, hatred, and delusion. I think the Buddha left out heartache. It's very interesting why, given how much neural real estate is devoted to social issues and how much suffering there is in the realm of disappointment, poor attachment experiences in childhood, feeling rejected by others, dismissed, issues of envy or shame or loneliness or loss of love. But that said, I think there really are four poisons, not three. There's hatred, greed, heartache, and delusion. But anyway, when we have a brain that's not disturbed by issues of these, what does the brain do? It defaults to a resting state, which I think of as its home base, that is characterized in terms of the avoiding system as a basic sense of safety, protection, strength, and, in a word, peace. It's interesting that even though the sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight stress response system, gets a lot of press, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, if it bleeds, it leads, news at 11, right? It's actually the parasympathetic nervous system that's more primary. If you cut the nerve tracks that drive the sympathetic wing of the autonomic nervous system, because you need to do that for specific medical reasons, the person will remain alive. They may not be very useful in an emergency. It's hard for them to hit the gas pedal and rev up, but they'll remain alive. If, on the other hand, one is to cut the nerve tracks of the parasympathetic wing of the autonomic nervous system, the person will keel over and die. Heart will stop beating, lungs will stop breathing, they'll die. It's actually more primary. I think sometimes about how we look out in the sky and our attention goes to clouds, right? To what's in the foreground. And that's sympathetic activation. Fighting, fleeing, revving up, chasing pleasure, dodging sticks. But actually the sky of human experience is a background default state, a resting state of parasympathetic activation in which we refuel and repair the body and recover from stressful experiences. In much the same way, the resting state that the brain goes to in terms of the approaching system that seeks reward, particularly limbic system-based, is a resting state of a basic quality of happiness or well-being or satisfaction. In other words, when people are not intensely frustrated or blocked or obstructed in things that they really care about, what do they usually report being? And also if they're not chemically disturbed through one thing or another, including the physiological processes that can strongly lead to depression, people report a basic quality of well-being. And last, when people do feel that they belong to the band, they're connected with others, it doesn't have to be perfect relationships, but there's a basic sense of connectedness, belonging, feeling seen, tuned into, empathized with, and even cherished and loved, people describe a basic sense of feeling loved and also feeling loving. So that's our natural resting state, which I think is really, really good news.